Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to Quarantine Talk. I'm having a little bit of a problem today. I was trying to make a video about programming and I just was not feeling it. Somehow in a bad mood or something. And um, I just couldn't get into it. And I kind of think maybe I've been doing so much pixel graphics in the last 2 days. My head has been in this totally other space. Because I've been drawing a lot of new icons and moving widgets and toolbars around and putting frames in just the right place and doing a lot of stuff like that. And for some reason, I just can't take the step from that headspace to my normal programming headspace today. So it was frustrating. So I went out for a drive instead. And now I'm just sitting here in some parking lot and thinking, why don't we make a video in the parking lot? So I don't really have a theme today, but I came up with something instead. And it's that I have one phone that I can record on and then another phone where I can read some questions. So I figured we could just pick some random YouTube comments from recent times. I have them here in chronological order, and we can just answer stuff as we go. So let's try it. See how it feels. So I'll probably edit this a little bit afterwards so that it seems more fluid. So in70x says, love how you switch up desktop pics for each video. I need to stop being boring and do that. Yeah, I got into this thing of switching my desktop wallpaper. It happened organically, and I really like it. It's just a fun little thing that every time before I record a video, I now have this routine where I go and I pick a new wallpaper, and it's just a little thing, but it makes it fun for me. So I like it, and it's always nice when people recognize what's in the wallpaper, or if there's very often I put like a little joke in there or something, or a reference to something that I'm working on, and if you get the jokes, then maybe there's some enjoyment in that also. Anyways, definitely recommend switching your wallpaper every now and then. It's nice. All right, so Doc Yoda says, it's been a while since you implemented the web server and HTTP support. So I was just wondering, why haven't you implemented HTTPS? Given that Serenity already has an OpenSSL port, it seems like it wouldn't be too daunting of a task. So HTTPS is part of something that Ali is working on right now, and you can go and look in the pull request section on the Serenity GitHub page, and you'll find his work on the PR is called something like libTLS, libcrypto, and basically Ali is implementing together with Itamar. They're implementing everything that we'll need to support HTTPS. That's why I'm not touching any of it, because it's already being worked on by others. And the reason that I haven't done it before is because I didn't want to use OpenSSL. I'm not interested in building things that have third-party dependencies. There's one, with one exception being the build system, like that we used to build Serenity. So stuff like GCC, make, things like that. I'm okay with bringing those dependencies around with us for now, but other than those, I don't want to add any other third-party dependencies to the system. But the TLS PR that Ali is working on is looking really promising. So go check that out if you're interested. Let's see. Gabriel asks, VRML support next. Probably not. VRML was this weird thing. I remember it was a virtual reality markup language, I think. And I remember the Netscape, what was it? Netscape Navigator 3 or 4, I remember had VRML support, and it came with this demo where it was like a 3D environment where you could pan around their logo in a 3D environment. And I remember even at the time, I thought it was kind of silly and cheesy, even though it should have been impressive, but it was, it was just really cheesy. I don't know if anyone ever touched VRML. Maybe it developed. I haven't looked at it. Okay, so let's see. Zinyar asks, will you add a plus in the tabs area, like in any browser, to create a new tab? I guess he's asking if we'll put a little plus button somewhere in the browser, somewhere in the browser UI to add a new tab. I don't know, maybe. I'm more of a Control T pressing kind of guy, but if it looks aesthetically fitting, then I guess we could put a plus button somewhere. Okay. And then Tim Morgan asks or says, wait, it's called favicon, not favicon? Or I think that's what he's saying. He's like kind of expressing himself somewhat phonetically here. And I guess that's reference to me having inconsistent pronunciation of favicon in my video about favicons. I don't know what to call them. Favicons, favicons, fave icons. I don't know. I don't know what to call them. Favicons. Favicon sounds somehow weird, but it rolls right off the tongue. Favicon sounds right, but it feels awkward to say. So I don't know. Gabriel, another Gabriel, asks, wait, you worked on Safari? Like Apple's Safari? Yes, I did. I worked on the Safari team between 2011 and 2017. And my main area was browser performance and specializing even more specialized in memory performance, but I was on a performance team for the most of that time. And I was tasked with tracking memory usage regressions, performance regressions, and also doing lots of optimizations to improve the various performance benchmarks that we had for the browser. And then Ömer says in response to this, because I actually already answered this in a comment, he says, wow, that's great, man. I wonder, have you done any OS development for a company, maybe Windows? I have not done any OS development outside of this. This is, I'm learning this as I go. Like I have no professional experience with operating systems. All right, and then let's see. Oscar says, this is a longer comment. Oscar says, honestly, dude, your videos are very inspiring and remind me to continue to create and motivate myself outside of my daily job. Other than that, they remind me of myself a couple of years back when all I used to do were reinventing things and trying to figure everything out. Thank you for documenting all of the hard work you do on Serenity OS. It is impressive and incredibly fun to watch. Have a nice weekend. Smiley face. That's a great comment, Oscar. Thank you. Man. I'm really glad to hear that that people find my videos inspiring. It's one of the greatest things that you can hope for in life, I think, to inspire someone else. And it's such a great thing to hear. Thank you, man. And I'm really glad if I can reignite that spark to reinvent everything, because it's really fun. And if you enjoy that kind of thing, I hope you get back to it sometime. And then, let's see, 0x asks, how much memory uses Serenity OS idle mode? So Serenity uses currently about 32 megs of memory when it's idle after starting up. And it actually increased quite a bit recently when I started doing the desktop, like file icons on the desktop, because the desktop is now rendered, it's like a rendered window, and that window uses up a bunch of memory for its backing store. So it used to be a little bit less, but now we're at around 32 megabytes idle, which I would say is, acceptable. Okay. Let's see. Then we have Max saying, I'm glad you're doing all right. I'm also working on a personal programming project, something that's maybe only of interest to me, and enjoying it a lot anyway. Breaking problems into small chunks and tackling them one by one. It's all felt very achievable. Your attitude is infectious, I think. That's awesome, dude. Um, it's so good to have a personal programming project. Like I can't possibly overstate how important it is. I think to have a personal project going on. If you want to keep the love for programming alive in your soul, because I think that's something we all have in common, right? Like we all love programming. You're not sitting here listening to me if you don't love programming or computers at least in some way. Maybe you're into some other aspect of computers and you're here, but I would bet that we have computers in common. And I really do think that you have to have a personal project that you love if you want to keep that love alive. Because if you give your life to your job, then that love you have for computers is going to change and it's going to twist and it's going to be something else. And I've been to that place and it's not a good place. And I'm really glad that I found my way back out. Um, and yeah, you say that you're breaking down your problems into small chunks and tackling them one by one. I got to get better at doing that too. Like that's such an important thing, and I always have to remind myself to do that. Like something seems difficult, break it into smaller chunks. I hope your project is going okay, Max. Okay, then Richie Wright asks, what's the best way to learn about building good abstractions and good software design principles in general? That's a great question, and I think the best answer I have is work on open source software together with other people. The best way to learn about building software is to build software with others, with more experienced people, with like people with diverse ideas and experiences. And the best way to learn about good abstraction is to work in an environment that has good abstractions. I really do think of programming as sort of something that's really well suited to apprenticeship. Um, and since it's not really practical to like do apprenticeships in person most of the time, but you can do them very well in a kind of lightly, loosely knit way through the open source community. It's something that I really like, and what I mean is basically you can go to any open source project and start working on it. And if you are earnest and you try your best and you do a good job and you do your best to communicate well, then the people there will recognize that and they will appreciate your efforts and try to help you improve so that you can help them improve and so on. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's absolutely the best way to learn about good abstractions and good software design principles is to go out and work on big mature project together with others. And I always recommend projects like web browsers, desktop environments. It's big things with lots of odds and ends in them so that you can learn the whole thing. Um, and then Zeb says, oh, I guess I asked in a video, how did you find out about Serenity? And so Zeb is replying to that here saying, I think I saw something on Hacker News at some point, probably a link to one of your update videos in mid to late 2019. I'm doing well, by the way. Hope you are still hanging in there with all the stuff going on. Yeah, I'm still hanging in here, Zeb. Yeah, I guess I asked at some point where people found my stuff. This was a response to a reply on an older video. I am very curious where people found out about Serenity or found out about my channel, because the tools that I have available to find out where people learn about my projects and my content, they're very limited tools. Like I can find out that people come to my channel from github.com or from like browsing features on YouTube, but I don't really know a lot about it. It would be fascinating to know more about how people learn about it. But maybe I should do a survey or something. I don't know. If somebody knows how to find out where people come from, let me know. Let's see. Max says, "Hello, Andreas. Enjoyable view as usual. The amount of your dedication and patience is insane. I wanted to ask, what is your primary job and some background? Do you code in C++ primarily? Maybe you already answered similar questions before. I would like to read it if possible. Take care of yourself." Well, Max, I'm glad you liked the content, and I guess I try to be patient and dedicated to what I do, and I'm glad that I don't look impatient and undedicated, I suppose. So that's good. And you're asking, what's my primary job and some background? So my primary job is computer programmer. I'm a computer programmer at a small research lab in Sweden, and I do programming, and it's C++ primarily, yes, but also a bunch of other languages depending on what's needed. And what is some background? So I've been programming my whole life. I started as a very, very, very young boy. And I've been doing this professionally since I was, I guess, 18, because I dropped out of high school, got a job as a web developer. And then less than a year after starting that, I got a job doing C++ at a small company in Sweden, doing textile automation stuff, a lot of embedded development. And then after that, I worked at Nokia for 2 years on the Qt project, and also on the WebKit project there. And then I went to Apple. I spent 6 years at Apple and worked on the Safari browser. And then I left because of many different reasons, and didn't do anything for a while. And then I thought I was going to learn something other than programming, because I thought I was tired of programming and I wanted to do something else. But after I spent some time away from Apple, I realized, wait a minute, I freaking love programming. I'm just going to stop trying to learn something else and do programming. But I had to get a job where it wouldn't consume my soul in the same way that the big tech jobs do. So I went to a small place nearby where I lived, and I checked if they had some jobs, and they did. And now my free time is my free time is mine to spend how I like, and it's an amazing thing, and I love what I'm able to do with my free time. Like, I can sit here and do this. There was a thread on Hacker News a couple of days ago where they were talking about how Apple employees are essentially not allowed to work on open source software, and without company permission. And that type of stuff is just so depressing. And being in that environment where you just start to accept this as just, oh, that's just how it is, it's really sad. And having been in that environment and now being out of it, man, am I happy that I can do what I want in my free time. Like, I can go and put my code on GitHub. I can talk about it on YouTube. I can tweet screenshots of what I'm working on, or anything. And there's nobody there to tell me, like, hey, you can't do that. It is really good. And I got no hate for Apple or for these companies, but I do think it is really, really sad, the attitude that they have about people's free time. And the it is a really sad thing. And it's something that anyone who's working in these places, it needs to be something you think about seriously. Like how does that affect you, and how much do you care about it? Because I didn't care about it at first, and then it killed something in me that um, I did not like losing. But I got it back, so we're all good now. Anyway, let's find some more comments. So next is tabs for the IDE. So this is a comment on the video where I put tabs in the browser. So next is tabs for the IDE, says Raj. Hashtag bring back the IDE hacking. Hashtag Hack Studio needs more love. Yeah, Hack Studio needs more love. It's been getting a lot of interesting love in the last couple of days by Itamar, who's adding a C++ debugger to Hack Studio. And I was messing around with it earlier today and drawing some icons for it. And it looks really cool, really promising. C++ source level debugging with single stepping through C++ statements and stuff like that. Very awesome. So I guess I should mention that just because I'm not working on something, it doesn't mean that somebody else isn't doing something in the Serenity tree. Like this project is, it's pretty active outside of me. Like there are a lot of people working on it, and if you only observe this project through YouTube, then you don't see all of that, right? And I'm not saying that everybody needs to follow what's going on the project GitHub, but there's a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of interesting people doing interesting work. And I feel really blessed to have the company of dedicated and curious people who choose to spend some of their free time working on Serenity together with me. It's really amazing. A lot of good stuff coming in. Okay, and then here, Accelerator says, maybe I'm not that aware about the development of this browser, but why not using another stuff like WebKit? So, yeah, this is a question I get sometimes. Like, why don't you just make a browser using WebKit? And I already replied to Accelerator here, and I think I phrased it pretty well. So I'm going to read my response actually. Hi, Accelerator, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is a channel about the development of Serenity OS, a new from-scratch operating system not based on existing code. Everything I build on this channel is from the ground up with no external dependencies, including the web browser. It would certainly be easier to build yet another browser based on WebKit, but that's not what we're doing here. I hope that answers your question. Indeed, Accelerator, I hope that answers your question. I've spent so many years of my life working on WebKit, and it was a really good time, and I learned a lot, but it wouldn't be fun to just take something ready-made and slap it into Serenity. That's not how this project is working. Okay, and then we got a comment from John Rodriguez saying, hey Andreas, thank you for the amazing content. Because of your insights, I've decided to code my own 6502 emulator. My end goal is to be an awesome low-level, systems-level kernel developer. I was wondering, should I first complete my first emulator and then jump into open source? I'm interested in contributing to Serenity OS. Or could I maybe do both simultaneously? Backstory, CS grad with about 2 years in industry. Thank you much. I'm really glad that you are doing your own emulator, John. Emulator development is absolutely amazing for learning systems development. I always recommend building an emulator to people because it teaches you how to layer code and how to build systems that have to talk to each other, because anything but the most trivial CPU emulator will be an emulator that has subsystems that talk to one another. And just figuring out how to do that in the context of a real project is just such a good learning exercise. So whether you should first complete your emulator and then jump into open source or do them simultaneously, I don't know. You should just you should just do what's interesting. I think, like, if you follow your heart and do the thing that you're curious about and that interests you the most at the moment, that's when you tend to do your best work anyway. So if you feel like super interested in your 6502 emulator, do that. If you feel super interested in some open source project that you want to contribute to, do that. Just go where your heart points, and it's going to be good. And then Rockire says, recommendation, start using some kind of a Vim plugin in your IDE. Programming is much more enjoyable that way. I've used a Vim plugin in QCreator in the past, and I just don't enjoy it. I don't like it. And I'm a fairly decent Vim user. You know, I've used Vim for I don't know, almost 20 years at this point. No, not 20 years, but say 15 years of using it almost daily. And I like it in the terminal, but it just in the IDE it feels wrong. And I'm pretty productive with QCreator, the built-in editor, so I don't really feel the need to change anything about that. But anyway, I got nothing against Vim either. So then we got Jim asking, hey Andreas, thanks again for a great video. Do you have a roadmap to implement different features in JS, or are you just going through whatever you find interesting? I don't have a roadmap. I'm just doing whatever is interesting at the moment, Jim. And it's working out pretty well so far. And it's like I was just telling John that I really believe that if you do the thing that you're the most interested in, that you are the most curious about at the moment, that's when you do your best work. So one of my big hopes and dreams for the Serenity OS project is that it can be a system built entirely from pieces constructed while some person was more interested in that than anything else at that given moment. So if we can make a patchwork of everyone's, of the outcomes of everyone's really curious work, that I think that would be a really beautiful thing. And I guess we can do one more question, and then we should just we should call it a day. Okay, so Blam asks, when are you going to implement shared libraries? I hope you haven't demonized it in your head. You all. That's a good question, Blam. So the shared libraries, I don't know if I've demonized it in my head, but I have some idea that it is a bit complex. But the main reason that I'm not touching it is because Andrew is already working on it for some time. And he has written large part of dynamic loader for ELF libraries, and he's done some build system magic to produce shared libraries, and there's a fair bit of code in place, but there's also a bunch of stuff missing that needs to be done. And I know Andrew is a pretty busy guy, so he doesn't spend as much time on Serenity as I do, obviously, but generally, when it comes to something like this, where I see that some person, like Andrew in this case, is working on something that seems to be really interesting to them, then if I can avoid it, I try to stay out of the way, because of what I was saying, that I really hope that this can be a system built in a state of continuous curiosity. And Andrew seems to really like working on the shared library stuff, and picking apart the ELF executables and libraries and stuff, and understanding how they work by implementing them. So I'm really happy if Andrew is enjoying himself doing that. So yeah, I guess that's that. Whew. Anyway, that was a lot of questions, a lot of comments, And very strange format for a video, but I feel like the time just flew by. Already half an hour. So I don't know what we thought about this format. It was fun. So I hope that some of these answers were interesting or good. They were the best that I could think of right now. And I hope everybody is doing okay out there. I'm certainly in a much better mood than when I parked the car here. Man, just reading all these super friendly comments. People are so friendly in the community around Serenity, and the community on this YouTube channel. You folks are some positive, pleasant people. Like, gosh. It is nice around here, and I really appreciate that everyone is so nice all the time. What the heck? Good stuff. It I almost don't know how to react, because my whole life I was like a sarcastic, whiny person, and it's only in very recent years that I've almost like allowed myself to be cheerful, because I was always using like sarcasm, or I don't know, yeah, like sarcasm and like this deferential attitude, or like sort of dissociative attitude or whatever, to shield myself, I guess, from other people, because I didn't want to let anyone too close. And giving up on that has allowed me to be cheerful and hopeful, and it's really nice to see other people being the same way. And I don't know, it's someone said that I have an infectious attitude, and I really hope so, because it's it's a good feeling to be cheerful and to not shield myself with negativity and sarcasm all the time. Anyway, that's enough about that. But yeah, I hope everybody's doing all right. I'm gonna drive home and maybe draw another icon or something. I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with me in the car. Bye.